Great. Well, let's get started. So for those of you who are going to be joining us or will be watching this later, this is our second community chat with the city manager of Larkspur, Dan Schwartz, and Catherine Way, the current mayor of Larkspur. So it's now Tuesday, June 30th at 11 a.m. And we have offered to do this for our community every couple of weeks to fill them in on items that are of interest. You can email a question right now if you would like, or you can email in advance for our next one. And all that information is available on the website. We will probably be doing this every 2 weeks, and if things change, we'll let you know. So we thought today we would just do some updates on some issues, and primarily about 4 different issues that are going on in Larkspur. Although the overhead COVID-19 pandemic still remains, and that is our overarching issue, but we have 4 specific topics we thought we'd bring you up to date on. So I'd like to turn it over to the city manager to get us started.
Thanks, Catherine. So I want to begin by summarizing 2 public meetings that have taken place recently. One was on Friday. It was a Zoom meeting hosted by the county, specifically by Supervisor Katie Rice and Supervisor Dennis Rodoni. And each of 4 cities appointed members to an ad hoc group to join the 2 supervisors. And the purpose of the ad hoc group is to discuss the name of Sir Francis Drake being on probably the most significant road in Marin County, certainly one of the longest. And a lot of folks have been calling in, writing in, expressing their concerns about the history of Sir Francis Drake, particularly his ties early in his life to slave trading. And the purpose of this group is to look at whether or not the name of Sir Francis Drake should remain on the boulevard. And so from Larkspur, the representatives are Councilmember Scott Candell and Vice Mayor Kevin Haroff. And they joined the other 8 elected officials on Friday to listen for 2 hours to public comment about the name of Sir Francis Drake being on the road. And those 5 jurisdictions that were chosen, which are the county, Larkspur, the town of Ross, the town of St. Anselmo, and the town of Fairfax, they were all chosen because the road runs through their communities. There were no decisions made. The county is planning another session. We expect it to be announced any day now. And that session, unlike the first one where the community sort of had an open mic opportunity to talk to folks, that session will instead be one where experts, subject matter experts will speak. So historians familiar with that time period and familiar with the activities of Sir Francis Drake, representatives of the tribal communities, the Miwok tribe in particular, that was indigenous to this area, will speak about their history and their interactions with the Drake contingency. And so the goal of that session is to come to a mutual understanding about the history of that period so that we all can feel better informed as we move forward to discuss the legacy of Sir Francis Drake and the name being attached to the boulevard.
And do we know when that meeting?
Last night.
Do we know yet?
They haven't scheduled.
Okay.
They haven't scheduled it yet. I think they're trying to line up all the experts, and getting all those calendars lined up is taking a little bit of time.
And just for geographic reference for the community, the Larkspur portion of Sir Francis Drake begins at East Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, where Ramillard Park is, kind of by the old brick factory there. You can see the tower, and extends to Berry Way, which is right by the fire station, and the intersection where the gas stations are. That's sort of our little section. That's part of our jurisdiction. The rest is other cities and the county. Just so people are clear that we have about 1 mile of that.
I think we have the smallest segment of the road. Yeah. Last night, the City Council held its own session, and the purpose of that session was to talk about the statue that's on the Bay Shore near Remillard Park along Sir Francis Drake. It's a statue that has been labeled as the Sir Francis Drake statue and was dedicated under that name. But even back when that occurred, there was some discussion about the fact that it strongly resembled a statue the artist had made previously of Don Quixote. And so the statue has been a subject of its own debate in the community and in the broader Marin community for the last several weeks. And the council decided to hold a workshop last night to hear from folks. And many of the same people spoke, but there were others speaking about public art and the fact there isn't a lot of public art in our area. And there were folks who spoke about the fact that the statue, in their mind, has always been something other than Sir Francis Drake. But a lot of the same speakers with the same concerns about historical legacy spoke yesterday evening. And at the end of that meeting, the council gave direction to me and staff that we are to begin the process of assessing what would be involved with taking the statue down and what the costs would be, and bring that information back for a final discussion and decision by the council. That may also give us some time to hear some of the feedback from some of the historical experts as well.
Yeah, I think it was a very thoughtful meeting. I really appreciated the contribution that a lot of callers gave to us. There's a lot of learning that we all need to do about our history. And I really appreciated how many of them called in to present a view of history that has not fully been explored, which is sort of overlapping with some of the presentations that'll happen on the renaming of the road. So I encourage people to listen in on both of those. Our conversation last night will be was recorded, so it'll be available to watch. And also the public comments that were written are available on the website that you can read. And be prepared if you're interested in this topic to speak at our next chance when we have this to discuss, which will be coming up shortly. We have a little bit of homework to do as far as the process if it's to be removed and how that would go. So we're doing that background work right now. But I encourage everyone to take a look at that. I think a lot of callers, I was unfamiliar with some of the things that they had brought up. So thank you, Dan, for that. I think our second topic is reopening plan for City Hall and some of our local governance.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Catherine. We're getting a lot of inquiries about when will folks be able to walk into City Hall, particularly folks who are in the middle of some sort of remodel or other planning project. They'd really like to come in and be able to talk to the staff or look at old records. So we've been very cautious as we've tried to figure out how we can have people come into City Hall while maintaining all of the directives of the public health officer and make sure that the public's safe and make sure that our employees are safe. And if you come to our building, you know that one of the wonderful things about it is it's cozy, small, and quaint, but those are not adjectives that work really well in the COVID environment. So after giving this much thought and analysis, we've decided that for the time being, we're going to reopen City Hall, and we've tentatively scheduled reopening it next week, but it will be on an appointment-only basis. And that's so that we can limit the number of folks who are waiting in City Hall for their chance to receive services. We've actually invested in a software package called QList, as in a queue or a line. And with this software, folks will be able to get in line virtually to be let into City Hall, and they'll receive a text message letting them know it's their turn in the queue. So folks will have the opportunity to come down in the downtown area. They can go for a stroll. They can visit one of our coffee shops or restaurants while they're waiting for their opportunity to come in for their appointment. And then they'll get notified when they have their opportunity. And that's primarily so folks can deal with the planning and building department. We're working very hard to increase our virtual capabilities with those departments, and I think a lot of folks are finding they can get quite a bit of what they want online now. The area we're expanding most rapidly in is the archiving of our material, with our hope that we can post as much public information live on the internet as possible, so that folks won't even have to come in and research some of the old building files if they desire to do that.
And,
the other
and with all things coming into City Hall, we'll all be following the guidelines of masking and hand washing. That'll be required to enter City Hall, just a reminder. It's a mandatory requirement now within the county and within the state, but it's definitely needs to be upheld in our small space that our city employees occupy.
And then, of course, the other aspect of City Hall is our library. And so far, the curbside pickup service has been very popular and very successful. Gotten a lot of positive feedback. We do know there are people who have research needs and want the ability to get into the library to access some of the reference material. And so I'm not sure that we'll be ready to do this next week, but in the very near future, we hope to replicate the exact same system with the library. You'll be allowed in on an appointment basis using the QList software, and that'll give you an opportunity to go into the stacks or access the reference material so that you can get the information that you need. In addition, we know that a lot of folks enjoy City Hall as a place to take a break and maybe access Wi-Fi. And so we see a lot of folks, because the weather's nice right now, just sitting on the grass or sitting on the steps, and that's wonderful. What we want to do is actually try to figure out some ways to create some shelter space so that as the weather changes, or it's particularly as we get to the height of the summer and it's particularly hot, providing some shady spots so that folks can access the Wi-Fi while they're sitting outside and feel comfortable doing so. We'll be making sure those are marked with a lot of the same social distancing reminders as we'll have throughout the building as well.
And I think it's very, nice to see how responsive our reference librarians have been to online email requests for help. And I encourage everyone who's interested in still engaging with the library staff that they are still online with us and providing resources that way. Now, I've actually utilized Franklin's knowledge, who's our new library director, or community services director now, and he's very responsive to emails of questions that you might have. So take a look at that too. In regards to the library, I want to encourage those who are interested in what future library services may be in Larkspur to join us on our city council meeting tomorrow, our regular city council meeting tomorrow. One of the agenda items is a presentation by the Larkspur Library and Community Center Foundation. That might be of interest to people.
And I also want to make a pitch for the fact that Storytime is back. It's online. They're streaming it through the library's Facebook page, and folks should check that out. Really neat job they're doing.
Great. Let's see, before we go any further, well, we do have one person in our audience at this point, and if Mark is interested in asking a question, he's more than welcome to. Just raise his hand. But if not, we will move on to our next topic, which is recreation summer camps, which are very popular in the Twin Cities and in the Ross Valley, and they have been needed to be modified. So let's have an update on what happens with ours.
So the city has had to scale back on its in-house operations for recreation, but we're very fortunate to have strong relationships with providers of summer camps for youth that are third-party private companies that work under the umbrella of the city to offer those types of camps and experiences. And so we worked with some of our partners to launch camps out in Piper Park that have been going on. They're in week 2 now, and it's been extraordinarily popular. I was actually out there this morning during drop-off, and it's been a big success. So we are hoping we'll be able to offer more camps throughout the summer, but I want to remind folks it's limited capacity. We're doing basketball and volleyball as the primary 2 camps right now, and the way they're structured is the counselor one counselor can be with the same 10 or 12 kids for a 3-week period, 1 to 2 counselors, I should say. And so the camps, if you go out there, you'll actually notice that the kids are all separated into these pods of 12. And so that's who they're with for the 3 weeks that they are learning the sport. Right now we're focusing primarily on outdoor offerings. We do anticipate having some partnerships with entities that would like to do some very small scale indoor offerings, particularly around art and multimedia type experiences. So we'll be looking to offer some of that. We're exploring whether the Hall Middle School gym is a possibility for offering some of those items. Right now the gym's actually being used as part of the basketball camp.
And how would people find information about that? What we're
You
offering?
can go to our website and in the recreation page, you'll find all the information about camps that are available.
Great. And that's the Twin Cities. That's Corte Madera and Larkspur combined together?
What happens with camps is we advertise them under our Twin Cities banner. Right now, I think we were able to offer camps a little faster than Corte Madera at our facilities because of our relationship with Hall Middle School. Right now, we're offering the basketball on the grounds of the middle school, and then the volleyball, outdoor volleyball in Piper Park.
Great. So I'd like to stop and just ask the city clerk, or I think it's Shannon who's online here, the assistant to the city manager, if there are any emails that have come in during our talk, because people could submit emails early or during our chat.
I am not seeing any. There's none on through the video portal, and I'm not seeing any to the email address either.
Just checking. Guess we're not so popular today, huh, Tan? So, did you cover recreation? All of you wanted to say for recreation summer? Okay. Yeah. That brings us to our fourth topic, which is behaviors and expectations during Marin reopening.
Yes, I asked to put this topic out there because one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from all the city staff, particularly though in my office and in our public safety offices, it's a lot of contact with the public where they're frustrated with the behaviors they're seeing in terms of compliance with the public health officer's orders. So I want to just take a moment to talk to folks about how they can give us that feedback and how we use that feedback so that we have the right expectations about the role government's going to be playing as we balance public health and the desire to have some reopening of our society. And so the public health officer, Dr. Willis, likes to talk about the fact that we're transitioning from a more regulatory environment to one that's more of a social expectation or social norms environment where we all have to work together to police each other. And I think that's critical. We're not planning on driving around town and issuing citations if folks are not doing everything to the letter of the orders. What we want to do is educate folks. And I wish we had the manpower to be around town and pull over every group of people that we see who aren't following the rules the way they ought to be, but that's just not practical for us. We try to stay focused on targeted areas where we know there's going to be a lot higher volume of folks. We spend a lot of time talking to the business community to make sure they have the resources they need to follow the rules and to enforce the rules. But I do have folks saying, well, what do I do if I observe kids in the park? And so one of the things that we'd like you to do is just send us a note, give us a call, and say, I was in Piper Park and it wasn't clear to me if the volleyball that I'm seeing is supposed to be happening, and the kids seemed like they maybe weren't doing what they were supposed to on breaks with wearing masks or not wearing masks. And if you give us that sort of feedback, we can then use it as a teachable moment. We can go out and talk to the counselors, we can talk to the kids and say, let's all go over the rules and make sure that we understand why we're following them together. And that'll work a lot better for us. And quite frankly, for the police, A lot of the calls they get are about businesses, and they're using it as an opportunity to have a teachable moment. They go out, talk to the business owner, make sure they understand what the rules are. They walk through them a little bit, and it's not intended to be a punitive situation. But I do want folks to know that we just aren't going to be telling your neighbor that they're not following the rules well enough, or that group of teenage boys and girls that you see awfully close together, we're probably not going to be able to find them and give them that teachable moment. So I just want to address that because I know it can be frustrating for folks right now.
Yeah. I've gotten some emails from people wanting us to be more assertive in mask wearing responsibilities. And there's only such a limit that a city with our small staff can do to engage and enforce that. People have, by this point, all Marin residents should know what the rules are. And if they aren't following the rules, then they're putting themselves, their family, and others possibly in jeopardy of getting this virus. So people need to assume this responsibility for their community as well as their family and themselves. We have an older population in Larkspur. Age 65 plus is what our predominant age group is, and I really think it's imperative that we recognize that we're community members first, and to make sure that we're protecting each other. So I often tell people, please put on a mask, but it's hard sometimes now with people beginning to loosen their restrictions, but we can't do that quite yet. On that same account, although I seem to beat the drum a lot about registering for Alert Marin. Alert Marin is the way that all residents and businesses will get notification about emergencies that may be occurring in our community. And Alert Marin is the way that you can register your phone, your cell phone, your landline, and for alerts from the Sheriff's Department. I got one actually this morning. I don't know how many of you did, which was a reminder to wear a mask. So it's an alert system that everyone needs to sign up for, alertmarin.org. Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to ask any question? No? Well, moving forward this summer, the City Council is going to be continuing to look at assistance for reopening procedures for our businesses. We're also continuing in the conversation about the renaming of Sir Francis Drake. And what are some of our other big topics we might be hitting on this summer?
Actually, one of the big topics coming up is our regulations around cannabis.
Right.
We've had a request that we hold a workshop to revisit the different aspects of the cannabis industry and whether any of them are appropriate for Larkspur.
And that's a revisiting of conversations we've had for the last couple of years after Proposition, what was it, 64? I can't remember what proposition it was.
Yeah, you're texting.
That legalized recreational use of cannabis, and the City Council in the last several years has had conversations about that. We're just now going to re-examine some of those and see if we're comfortable where they are now or would like to change some of those. So it's hard in this digital landscape of Zoom meetings to really bring up issues that tend to engage a lot of community discussion, but we're going to try. So keep your eyes out for that and see if you would like to participate in that. We encourage you, and also encourage you to read the material as to what's been talked about in the past and see if there's new contributions to that you would like to make. So that's probably the summer, most of that. We continue to have planning commission meetings, and we continue to have library board meetings. I'm very thrilled to see the social engagement and political engagement that's happening in our community about a lot of issues. And I encourage the participation, and really thrilled to see how many people new to the conversations of our city and agencies are attending our virtual meetings. There are also opportunities to raise your hand and volunteer to be on a committee. So when those come up, take the next step and sign up to be on a board or commission in your town In our town and in the county, there are dozens and dozens of them available, where you can take your interest and actually be instrumental in policy changes. So on that note, we have 2 new planning commissioners who we will be appointing at our next meeting. And planning commission is a really key role for affecting change in your community. So whoever's listening to this, wherever you are, check out what's available for you to participate in. It's real opportunities in Marin County when governance is smaller to affect greater change. So do we have any other topic? Nobody has brought up anyone, so we may have a half an hour meeting instead of an hour one today.
I think we covered everything. So unless there's some question that's come in.
I'll give Shannon one more check of that.
Let me check. I'm not seeing any questions in the Zoom portal or to our email address at the moment.
Okay. And I just want to remind everyone that although we love the celebration of the Twin Cities 4th of July parade, it is not happening this year. And it's not happening this year because of COVID-19's restrictions on our gathering large groups of people together. So have a safe celebration if you're doing your own activity, but there won't be a gathering of Corte Madera and Larkspur residents this year. But we look forward to next year when we can all come out for that tradition, because it's a terrific tradition in our community. So I think we'll sign off for now, and stay safe and wear your masks, please, so we can get this under control in our community and get back to more activities that we all enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye.